The famous Bugatti Chiron rebuild story just hit a whole new level, and the automotive world didn't see this coming. Matt Armstrong has fabricated parts Bugatti refused to supply. The claim that this couldn't be done outside a Bugatti factory is falling apart faster than anyone expected, and the implications of what's happening right now go far beyond just one crashed supercar. If you've been following this story from beginning, you already know what's at stake here. This Chiron has been raising eyebrows and questions across the entire automotive world, challenging everything we thought we knew about modern supercar manufacturing, and the control brands like Bugatti maintain over their vehicles long after they leave the factory floor. Bugatti refused to supply parts to Matt Armstrong, citing protocol, liability, and the sacred nature of their brand. They made it clear that this car, in their eyes, should never be rebuilt outside their controlled environment. So Matt and his team have been doing it themselves, fabricating, sourcing, and reverse engineering every single component from scratch. But the hardest challenges were still waiting in the shadows, the kind of challenges that separate ambitious projects from impossible ones. The airbags, the chassis damage, and the radiators. This is where the story stands now. And this is where everything could either come together or fall apart completely. The margin for error has disappeared entirely. The car needed 3 critical things fixed before it could ever run again. Before the engine could turn over, before coolant could flow, before any of this could move beyond being parts on a bench. A fabricated chassis leg, rebuilt airbags, and radiators built from nothing but determination and skill. So Bob cut the damaged section out with precision, clamped in a vise, and got to work. No Bugatti tooling. No factory jig. No engineers in white coats hovering over blueprints and checking tolerances against specifications developed over years of testing. Just pure skill and decades of experience working with aluminum and understanding how metal behaves under stress. He found the exact grade of aluminum that Bugatti used in their factory, the same aerospace-grade alloy that costs a fortune and requires specific welding techniques. He sourced it himself through contacts built over years in the industry, built it from scratch, corner by corner, weld by weld. Tack welds first to hold everything in position, then the full welds with precise heat control to avoid warping, and lastly the bolt holes threaded with surgical precision to match the factory specifications exactly. The end piece slid on the first attempt like it was meant to be there all along, like it had been manufactured on the same line as the original. He painted it, sanded it smooth with progressively finer grades, and clearly coated it until it looked like it rolled off the Motion production line. The difference between this part and an original Bugatti part is functionally zero, and that fact alone should make people rethink what they believe about manufacturer exclusivity. Then they moved to the steering airbags, and this is where things got interesting in ways nobody anticipated. Every single airbag fired in the crash. Dashboard torn open like a gutted building. Steering wheel cover destroyed beyond recognition. And the airbags gone. Side airbags deployed. Bugatti wouldn't supply a single replacement, not one component. Not even with money on the table and liability waivers signed. So Matt pulled the part numbers himself from the destroyed components and started digging through databases and supplier networks. The dashboard airbag came out stamped with Volkswagen Audi group codes, and one of them matched an Audi A3. Same suffix, same structure, same dimensions, same deployment specifications. It slid straight into the Bugatti dashboard without any modification whatsoever, fitting perfectly into the mounting points and connecting to the wiring harness like it belonged there. A Bugatti Chiron running an Audi A3 airbag, and that question is still hanging in the air, creating discussions across forums and comment sections. Will it perform exactly the same when it matters most? Will it deploy at the correct millisecond with the correct force to protect an occupant the way Bugatti intended? The reality is that it probably will, because these components come from the same Volkswagen Group parts bin, manufactured to the same standards, just branded differently and sold at wildly different prices. But until it's tested, the question remains open. The steering wheel cover needed complete reverse engineering because the original was destroyed and Bugatti keeps those designs locked behind legal walls. E3 customs matched the leather thickness, exactly using calipers and material analysis, designed a stencil on a computer with measurements taken from the fragments that remained, and laser etched the weakening point with precision down to fractions of a millimeter. That's the exact spot the airbag tears through on deployment. the perforated line that allows the bag to emerge without catching on leather. Bugatti use a knife tool in their factory, a blade that scores the leather from behind. The Reset team did it with laser and precision software that can repeat the same cut 1,000 times without variation. Brand new, functional, OEM quality in every measurable way, built without a single Bugatti document or blessing. The knee airbags were rearmed with fresh explosive charges by the Reset team, components sourced from suppliers who provide to original manufacturers. A missing glove box cover was fabricated from raw plastic by E3 Customs, molded and finished to match the texture and appearance of the original. And now the interior, where this build took a turn nobody expected, and where Matt's vision started to separate this car from every other Chiron on the planet. Matt handed the entire cabin to E3 Customs with a design concept that existed only in his head. What came back doesn't exist anywhere else on the planet, and never will unless someone deliberately copies it. Purple and white leather split down the middle like a dream and a memory colliding, like two different timelines of the same car existing in one space. Laser cut patterns hand-painted into the hide with artist-level detail, geometric designs that catch light differently depending on the angle, half-and-half seats that look like they belong in a museum dedicated to automotive art rather than on a road. Seat belts dyed to match each side perfectly, a detail most people would never notice, but that completes the vision. The bronze fitting stayed, and that was a deliberate choice that says more than it seems. A piece of the car's original identity kept alive inside a machine, being rebuilt from absolute nothing, a thread connecting what this car was to what it's becoming. The steering wheel dropped in last, retrimmed in leather that matches the new interior theme. E3 left the Bugatti logo off to avoid any lawsuit risk from a brand known for protecting its image aggressively, but something had to go in there. The center sits empty for now, waiting for whatever comes next, whether that's a custom badge or something else entirely. Then the radiators. And this is where it got brutal in ways that tested everything the team thought they knew. This is where everything is now hanging in the balance, where all the fabrication work in custom interior and rebuilt airbags could become meaningless if this one system fails. 10 radiators on a Chiron, a cooling system more complex than most people can imagine. 2 in the front handling primary engine cooling. 2 on each side managing charge air and oil temperatures, and charge coolers for the turbos that need to drop intake temperatures by hundreds of degrees. 40 liters of coolant run through a system more complex than most entire cars, flowing through passages and chambers designed by teams of engineers with computational fluid dynamics software. Every single one was damaged in the crash, bent or punctured or compromised in ways that made them unusable. Bob took direct originals to a core supplier and found units that matched the specifications closely enough to be modified. He took them back to the machine shop, cut the fittings with precision saws, machined brackets from raw metal on a mill, fabricated hose connections that would mate to the Bugatti-specific couplings, and built Bugatti radiators from scratch using damaged reference parts and educated guesses on mounting points where nothing was left to measure. One unit came back with the brackets on the wrong side after the first attempt at installation. Bob swapped them without hesitation and moved on, because stopping second-guess decisions is how projects like this die incomplete. The radiators went in, every position filled with custom-built units that cost a fraction of what Bugatti charges but took 10 times the labor to create. One by one, they started locking the system together like a puzzle with pieces that had to be forced to fit. Hoses on, clamps tightened to specific torque values, lines routed exactly where they needed to be through a chassis that wasn't designed to be disassembled and reassembled this way. This is the part that actually matters, because on a Bugatti Chiron, this isn't just cooling, this is survival for an engine that produces forces and temperatures that would destroy lesser machines in minutes. 40 liters of coolant, moving through a system that was never meant to be rebuilt by an independent builder in a shop in the UK without factory support. Every connection matters because a single failure dumps coolant and shuts the engine down. Every seal matters because air in the system creates hot spots that can warp heads or crack blocks. And now, there's only one way to find out if it works. Only one test that will reveal whether all this fabrication was successful or futile. The pressure test tool goes into the expansion tank, locked in and sealed with an adapter that Matt had to source separately. Air starts going in slowly, controlled pressure climbing degree by degree, while eyes watch gauges and listen for sound that shouldn't be there. At first, everything looked good. No movement in the pressure gauge, no drops that would indicate a leak, no visible leaks anywhere in the system that's now spread across the entire front end of the car. This is the moment where you start thinking maybe it actually worked, maybe all the fabrication and guesswork and late nights actually paid off, and this massive complex system is going to hold. Pressure keeps building toward the test specification, and then it makes the kind of sound that immediately tells you something isn't right. The hiss of air finding a path it shouldn't have. Air escaping, water escaping, and then you see it. Bubbles rising through the core from inside the radiator itself. Small at first, but consistent. Telling a story nobody wants to hear. And that's when it hits. The leak isn't a hose or a clamp or a fitting. All things that can be tightened or replaced in minutes. It's in the actual core of the radiator. In the brazed joints between fins and tubes where repair is nearly impossible. And that's not something you tighten and reseal with a wrench and some sealant. This damage most likely occurred during transit because these weren't protected factory units wrapped in foam and shipped in climate-controlled trucks with fragile labels and handling instructions. They were built, moved, handled, repositioned multiple times as the car came together, and at some point one of them took a hit and no one saw it happen. Maybe it was bumped against a workbench. Maybe it was set down too hard. Maybe it was just a weak braze from the factory that was waiting to fail. But now everything is finally together. The entire system is under pressure for the first time, and that's when it shows itself. It's too late to ignore and too deep to bypass without compromising the entire cooling system's effectiveness. This is the moment everything hangs on, not the full system anymore, not all 10 radiators or the entire build or the months of work. One core, one weak point, one weld, one fix, one chance left to bring this entire system back to life without starting over. Because without it, nothing else moves forward. No running engine, no next stage, no heat cycles, no validation that any of this works under real conditions. Just a full stop and a decision about whether to pull the radiator back out, send it for repair or replacement, and lose days or weeks of momentum, or push through the repair attempt right where it sits. Let's step back for a second and look at what this episode actually built. What's been accomplished while the world watched and commented and debated whether any of this was possible or advisable. A fabricated chassis leg with factory-level finish, built from raw aluminum without a single Bugatti supply or approval, strong enough to handle the forces this car will generate and invisible once the car is complete. A reverse-engineered airbag cover, laser-cut with precision, and designed to function exactly like the original, protecting occupants the same way a part costing 10 times more would. An Audi A3 airbag sitting inside a Bugatti Chiron, and that question still remains. Not whether it fits, because it does perfectly, but whether it performs exactly the same when the moment of impact comes, and milliseconds determine outcomes. A one-of-one custom interior unlike anything that ever left Molsheim or any other factory on Earth. A combination of colors and materials that exists because someone imagined it and skilled craftsmen made it real. Every single part of this car was touched, rebuilt, recreated from the ground up